Hey guys, on today's install diaries, this is going to be a little bit different because this product no longer exists. It's gone. Alpine decided that, hey man, this is cool, but apparently no one wanted to buy it, so see you later, bye. Which is a shame because these speakers that we're going to show you are probably the best speakers that Alpine has ever made.
Wow.
Well, it's the 8-inch.
Yes.
Yep. And the little tiny dash speakers. Enjoy this, have fun, but know that if you have a Chevy, you're probably not going to be able to find these speakers to put on them.
If you have one, you're lucky.
Yeah, you are. This guy's a lucky dude because he got the last set we had before we found out that they don't make them anymore. All right, well, enjoy the video as always. Well, good morning, everybody, and how are you doing today? How are you, Fernando?
I'm doing awesome.
That's great.
Yeah.
So what do we have today that we're going to enjoy putting in and talking to you guys all about? We have something new. Let's take a look. So we have the Alpine SPT31GM. And what it is it's a full speaker system. Comes with 8s, 2.5s, tweeters, rear speakers for a Chevy pickup. This is a Silverado. We're gonna put this in, so this comes with all the pieces needed. That'll be fun. We're going to do a handle cam from Echo Master, part number PCAM GM2, a T404, MVH 2300 NEX, Stinger kit, pack wiring harness, and then somewhere in here is a smart harness, an LCGM 51, 10 adapter. So the only thing we don't have yet is where we're gonna put the USB. This has that factory USB SD card aux plate that's mounted in the armrest. Those are not retainable because these radios can't read through hubs like that. We'll figure out some place to put the flush mount USB somewhere on the front because this is Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and we're sure he's gonna wanna use it. One thing about this kit is you do have to cut the dash. This is a permanent install unless you wanna buy a new cover piece across the front. Something to think about. It does come with the templates, which you guys will get to see in a little bit. First things first, anytime we get a car like this in, we wanna try to go through it and figure out where we're gonna put all the stuff. This is only highs, so in case you're wondering like, hey, where's the sub? There is no sub going in this yet. We're just doing the highs today. Let's take a look at what Fernando's come up with for the amplifier. So originally we were thinking about putting it underneath the armrest because there was tons of room under there. However, there's some kind of a body control module underneath there that just doesn't look too friendly. So we're not going in here. What I think he's gonna do is go underneath the seat.
Correct.
All right, so we'll make a panel, we'll mount it there underneath the seat. There is a bar underneath the seat that slides, so it's gonna have to sit towards the back of the seat like that. Now the nice thing is that underneath the passenger seat, this one here, there's the exact same room. So when he does do a sub amp of any kind, hopefully a matching T-Series, it'll have to be because it needs to be small. There'll be plenty of room for him to mount it over there. Now these T-Series amplifiers only need an 8 gauge to power. I recommend getting a 100% copper kit. We are using this guy right here, which is the Stinger blue kit. The reason why we picked the blue kit as opposed to the red kit is the blue kit comes with the mini A&L fuse right here. The red kit just comes with the standard barrel type glass fuse, and it's silver coated copper. Who doesn't love silver coated copper? Right, Fernando?
Yes, totally.
Totally. So now the plan is to continue and figure out where everything needs to go. Join us on our journey. Of course, we get to talk the whole way. So let's get started, shall we? Let's get this started. Read before installation. And some instructions. 1 box. 2 box, 3 box, 4 box, 5 box, 6 box, 7 box, 8 box, 9 box. So there's 9 boxes in all inside of that box. And now in the instructions sheet, it's going to give you a check-in as far as what should be in all these boxes so that you can make sure you have all the parts. This is the box that I'm after, which is these top grills. This is going to be the template we're going to use. Right now though, I'm gonna save this box until last. The brown box has all of our crossovers in it. Rear speaker, it's a coaxial. We're not gonna use this, so I'm gonna set this aside. This says the SPT80s. These are gonna be the big 8-inch mid-bass that go on the door. Next up is this little box here that says Alpine 31. These are gonna be the little brackets to mount the 2.5 inch. We'll go ahead and leave those in a box. We don't lose them. And then we got the 10Ts. This should be the tweeter. Sure enough, this is the cool little tweeter right here. Then we have the 30Ms. This should be the mid-range. This is the coolest little speaker. I wish Alpine would sell this individually. That would be really cool. There's that bracket. So we got a bag of parts. Here's all the factory clips right here. Comes in the bag. Got some zip ties. And then these are the brackets for the rear speakers, the rear 6.5s. We're not going to be using these, but we'll just set these on the shelf right now. This should be the brackets for the front doors. So here we go. We have the giant, what would normally be a 6x9, but they've converted it to an 8-inch. We have an L, we have an R, and we have some screws. Okay, it goes in there just like that. Now what we want to do is go back to grabbing these guys right here, grab our dash panel, and we'll get these guys mounted.
Okay, so the plan is go under the seat like we talked about. I'm gonna remove the seat so I can have space to make my panel. My panel is gonna be grab the factory bracket, factory bolts actually. I'm gonna try to make the same shape of this plastic. It looks like factory.
So real quick, Fernando wanted to pull the seat out, so we wanted to go ahead and unscrew the seat belt. So we went ahead and we're pulling the rear speakers out. Now to do that, you have to pull this piece off first. And every one of these spots that you see is a clip. So there's like 50 clips holding this on. It's insane. And they're the metal kind, so just like the radio bezel, they're a pain in the butt to get off. And then once you get those off, you can pull these sides down and you can get to this 4x6 back here. This is the hole here. I'll show it to you in a minute. But they have new clips on them. As you can see, Fernando's over there struggling with that one over there. So this red piece has to come up first, and then that'll allow you to push this piece in where my thumb is, and then they slide off. But they're definitely not the funnest things in the world to get off. And then this is the 4x6 here, one hole, standard GM style. It's got some clips here in the bottom. It looks like a miniature 6x9. Like if you were to look at the factory 6x9, if my hand wasn't here, you'd be like, oh, that looks like the 6x9 that goes in the front door. So we just needed to get those out real quick. We'll figure out how we're gonna mount those later. The kit comes with a 6.5, so we're actually just gonna take the 6.5s out and swap them out for the 4x6. So just like the back panel I was just describing to you, if you guys haven't seen us take one of these off yet, there is just, there's like, I don't know, 12 clips on this holding it on. Totally unnecessary. I think the clips probably weigh more than the plastic the thing is made out of. So just take your time getting this thing off. And of course they put them in like the thinnest plastic ever. This is a 1/2 inch piece of plastic and there's 2 clips holding it on. It's insane. Alright, clip, 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 clip. Lots of clips. There's 3 plugs on the back of the radio. This little USB looking thing, which is the blue one here. And then a gray, which goes to the gray air conditioner, and a black, which goes to the black radio. The only thing we're going to retain out of this is this piece right here, the air conditioning controls. The rest of this will just go into the bag. This is the actual radio. This guy up here, this big green plug, this big gray plug. Next to it is a fat antenna looking one. That's going to be your FM antenna. So next to that is a brown looking USB. This is what goes into the armrest that we can't retain. The blue one here is the blue for the screen. And then we have this gray guy right here, which honestly I have no idea what it goes to. It's not retained. There's a clip, and then this just pulls out. Careful, you know, don't pull from the top. You'll slice the tip of your fingers off. And this indentation right here is why this slides out. All right, so this is the radio right here. I know it's plastic. Way to go. It's just got a little circuit board inside of it. Basically what we have to do is trim this here, and then all this area in the back here, this all has to come out so that we can put our new radio in. There's tons of room in this dash, so we could almost probably mount the amplifier up in the dash if we wanted to. In some of the cars, there is a second box right here. If your car has that, no problem. Just pull it out for right now. Remove this portion right here, this little shelf that's sticking up. Remove this, and then just lower the box and stick it right here. So I'm gonna go set these on the bench, and then we'll come back and we'll remove this top dash. So we're gonna start by removing the A-pillar here. For that, you need a really, really thin piece of metal to get in there so you can pop these screw covers off without marking up the plastic. You just kind of got to get in there and like pry or like pull it off, you know, so you want to slide under there so you don't nipple the corners when you're doing it. Alright, so yeah, there just seems to be one metal clip here on the top, and that's it, holding it in place. So that's cool. And then the reason why we pulled it off is because there is an L in the corner here that this is locking this whole piece in the dash. So you do have to remove these. We'll go ahead and remove the passenger side one. Now let's gently go ahead and start working our way up underneath this. Luckily this is a newer vehicle, so hopefully we shouldn't have any problems, although I'm assuming there's probably 50 clips and they're all metal holding this in place. Oh yeah. They are. Just go slow. Go ahead and unplug your sensor. Got two pinchies on the side that just pinch in, like, you know, it's like this. We just pinch it and slide it out. When that comes off, just lift up and slide out. There we go. So on the back, as we said, metal clip, metal clip, metal clip, metal clip, metal clip, all along, yay. And then it's got these little shovel style, these little, that clip into the front of the dash. Now the reason why we need to get these off is because we have to cut this. Now this has no dash speakers in it, but the wiring is here, so that's kind of cool. I don't know if it goes behind the radio, but it's there. Let's get this over to the bench and we'll open the kit and take a look at it and figure out what we have to do to this. So we want to grab our handy dandy instructions here and turn to page 12. It's going to talk about getting that dash panel out like we showed you. And then what we need to do to this first things first is there's a lip right here. This lip, we need to go ahead and remove that. Now if the plastic is thin enough and your blade is sharp enough, you can go ahead and use a blade to do it. Otherwise you can sand it. It's not a good idea though to sand this if you can avoid it, because it heats up this plastic and it starts to fill up these holes. Alright, so now what we want to do is, it says we want to mark the area where we're going to cut. This is the cool little template they give us that is totally flexible. It has these two teeth in it right here that are going to line up with this piece that the A-pillar clips into, just like this. Set it in place, line it up the best that you can. For this, we'll go ahead and use a silver Sharpie. So now we have our shape. What we want to do is go ahead and remove this. Now these holes are 5/16 that they want us to drill. So what we'll do before we drill the 5/16 is we'll go ahead and do an 1/8 inch pilot hole first, just to find our center point. Now this is fairly soft plastic, and I suppose if you had the time you could probably sit here and do this with a knife, but more than likely some form of a roto zip would be way better. Just be careful when you're cutting material like this. Always go from the bottom of the material, don't come from the top, because if this were to walk around you'll scratch the whole top of the surface. Now we use the spiral cut roto zips. Now as far as doing some finish sanding, I like to use something like this. It has an auger bit on it. It's not as mean as this. It allows you to do a little bit more fine control. Something to think about when you are cutting through this. When you're cutting through this mesh part, it's every time you get to one of these braces, it's gonna wanna wobble and walk. So try to do it over a surface that you can see, and as you're cutting it, just kind of turn into those, and it'll naturally push it out, which will keep your line straight. So just be conscious, because otherwise it's gonna wanna walk it out. You don't wanna walk it out, as the song says. Naturally, we want to do a little test fit so everything lines up good. So what they tell you to do is go ahead and twist in the tweeter before you screw this in. And there's little teeth inside of this that you want to line up with the tweeter. Like a key, slide it in. You hear a click when it's in. Might take you 1 or 2 tries to get all 3 of the clips lined up. But then when you get it in, you should be able to be nice and secure. Now we'll go ahead and cut the other one before we screw this on. So now we want to flip it over and mount this in. To do that, we want to look for the bag that has the washers in it. Now it's supposed to come with 10 washers, 10 3/8 inch screws. However, my bag only has enough for one side, and there's no other bags anywhere. We'll go ahead and get this one done, and then we'll dig through our parts bin and find something to hold this in place. So what we want to do is go ahead and put our washer on our screw. Use a screwdriver, don't use a drill. We'll go ahead and we'll just get it on there. We're not going to torque it down, we just want to get all these in. Alright, so let's flip it over, make sure we have it on the front edge, and then we'll go ahead and tighten this thing down. Now naturally, don't go crazy and gorilla tighten these, just get them tight enough. So we'll go ahead and do that to this side here, and we'll pretty up these wires that are on this, get the crossover mounted, and then we'll hop into the truck and figure out how these dash speakers go in. So this is the bag of clips that we showed you earlier. We want the bigger clip, which is this guy here. That's gonna be the one for the dash. The rest of the back in the bag until we need them. So what we wanna do is go ahead and grab this out of the crossover box. On one end, it's going to say mid and tweet. On the other end, you're just gonna have 2 terminals here that are designed to slide onto this. I'm gonna go see where I can mount this real quick, but then we'll go ahead and we're gonna solder these together. We don't need a connection, and then more connections. So we're gonna eliminate as many connections as we can to make it serviceable, and this is definitely one we need to get rid of. But let's go see where we're gonna hide this guy. So in the dash, there are the holes. This didn't have a factory speaker, so there's this clip right here that is for the speaker. Now Alpine gives you plugs that are going to plug into this, but what we want to do first is test to make sure that this wire goes behind the dash. And to do that, we'll use our digital multimeter, set the continuity. We'll go ahead and put 1 probe into this harness, and then we'll go over to the dash and meter speaker wires, and we'll listen for that beep. Set our meter to this guy right here, the lines. And that's telling us that this is going behind the dash. So this is actually in the loop, so we're good there. We can use this. We'll go ahead and we're gonna feed this out here to this area for right now. We have a bracket that the speaker comes with that'll line up with the factory, and then the little Alpine back here can go right into that. Now what we want to do is just get an idea. We want to make sure we see where these go. These are the leads. We want to make sure they're not in the way of anything. Even though it's nice to have the Alpine logo facing in a specific direction, we also want to make sure that we're not shorting the speaker out to anything. And actually, if we go up to this area here, that would probably be our best. Go ahead and make sure that the Alpine logo faces up. We'll just verify that we don't see it through the grill so that it won't be an issue there. So this is a rather large crossover. It will fit perfectly fine here in the corner where the A-pillar meets and slide forward and tuck up out of the way. So we have plenty of room here. That means we can go ahead and shorten up our wires on all our connections. And of course, we'll check the driver's side when we get over to the driver's side. Let's go head over to the bench and get this all buttoned up. Now for the mid, we're just going to leave that the way it is because that's just going to slide onto the speaker. So we'll just go ahead and insulate up the wire. The tweeter is another story though. The tweeter has like 4 feet of wire on it, and we're definitely not going to need. We'll go ahead and shorten that up for sure. And for that, we're going to go ahead and still put a connection in there. We're going to use our bullet style connectors. And what we'll do is we'll put them backwards so we have a female and a male on there. That way, when we go to put the tweeter in, it'll only still go in one direction. All right, now what I want to do is go ahead and plug everything in just like it was in the car, and we're going to go ahead and do a polarity test right now to make sure that everything is going in the right direction. Alpine might want this differently, I don't know, but we'll go ahead and check it out and see if they did any mysterious stuff to this. So we're going to use our PT9A here. Now it has a microphone in the end of it, so you can easily just do this, However, I don't always trust it, so we're gonna go ahead and use our polarity checker here. All right, so that is red over here. And that is red, so they're both moving the same polarity. So they're both in polarity with one another. That's good. Now we'll go ahead and screw this together, get these in the car, get the crossover in the car, and get ready to snap this back in place. We're gonna go ahead and get these screwed into the brackets like we said. Now inside the box here, taped into it, is the bag of 8 screws. So you don't have to worry about missing those. Now it is a number 1 Phillips, not a number 2. Don't try to use a big drill bit, you'll just strip them out. And they are excessively long for what we're trying to do here. Put your thumb over it just like this while you're screwing it in. That way if the screwdriver falls off, because it is the number 1, you don't have to worry about it poking the speaker, it'll just damage your thumb. All right, so these 2 guys are wired up. Let's go ahead and take this over to the dash. We'll get the crossover installed. I just want to see if it fits with the terminals facing down, just because my OCD is telling me that's the way I want it. And it doesn't seem to be touching anything, so we're going to go ahead and mount it that way. Now the only problem is since there was no speaker up here, that means there's no screws, so we're going to have to find some screws to screw this guy in. And the other thing too is he just had his windshield tinted, so we want to make sure we're real careful with that. Alright, so the mid-range in, we want to make sure we keep our tweeter wire up so we can plug that guy in. Alright, so we're going to put this back in. Go ahead and plug your speaker wires in first. Now if you forget to plug this back in, you can still reach it up underneath the dash here. Start in the center and work your way towards the outside. Alright, so once you're in the corners, push it this way, snap it down, go back over there, push it that way, snap it down. This clip here is the one that's going to be difficult. Well, let's take a close-up look, shall we? So there we go. That's what it should look like in the dash. Nice flush, has that silver look to it. And the other side will look the same. Now I will say when you're going to put it in, because of the way this tweeter is mounted, it sits right above this clip and the wire for the tweeter runs straight down. It wants to get caught up into this clip as you're snapping it in place, so just be conscious of that and push that tweeter wire back out of the way so you don't have to worry about getting it pinched into the clip. Now we can go ahead and we're going to put this A pillar back on because we don't need it. We'll leave that one off until we get the Bluetooth mic in, and then we'll put that one back together. Let's go back over to the workbench. We have the rear speakers. We're going to figure out how we're going to mount those. Now Alpine doesn't make a 4x6 anymore. I thought they did, my bad, but they do make a 4-inch that comes with a 4x6 plate. Let's go see what we're going to come up with for that. Now because it is a 4-inch instead of a 6.5, we are going to need some kind of a base blocker, so we'll probably go with like a 47 microfarad cap on those. The amplifier has a high pass filter, but it's still nice to put the cap on it just to be safe. Yeah. What we want to get to is hidden in the bottom of the box. So inside the box we get these guys here. These are a 4x6 adapter. Allows us to turn our 4-inch into a 4x6. We also get this stuff here. This is actually foam. Alpine has been putting this in their 4-inch, 4x6, and 5x7s for years. Basically like a inexpensive version of a fast ring. It's to mimic the same foam that these have on them. What we want to do is go ahead and check this if it fits, or are we going to have to make a whole new mount. I didn't take the camera over to do the test fitting. All right, so that's a big no on these. These are not going to fit. But if you have a 4x6 mount and you want Alpines, you can use these. We're going to use these to get this hole size though. What we need to do is make this shape now. So to do that, we'll go ahead and we're going to remove this because we don't need it. We're going to cut some plastic and see what comes of it. Now anytime we do a speaker for the first time, we like to make a template. So we'll go ahead and get our basic size here. Making a template, we like to make them out of white if we have it. This is a 1/2-inch piece of blown PVC. It just looks better on the wall. We can see it easier. So when making a copy of the speaker, we want to set it like this on here to do that. But we want to countersink it in, so we're going to go ahead and cut a hole in this to make room for the magnet. So we also had to drill a hole to clear the speaker plug. So now we can go ahead and set this guy on here. Screw it into place. So also drilled a little hole right here so that we can fit an additional drywall screw in there to hold it down. So now let's go ahead and take it over to the router and we'll router this bad boy out. So we have the basic shape that we want. We're gonna go ahead and drill this hole. And then of course we're probably gonna have to knock this portion of it off here. We just wanted to make sure we copied it as close as we could to start out with. All right, let's go ahead and take this over and see how this fits. All right, so this fits really well. The only thing we're gonna need to do is remove about 1/4 of an inch of this away. We'll drill another hole here, and what it'll do is it'll screw in here and here. So we'll put a threaded rivet down here, that way we can attach it. We're also gonna have to add this foam that it comes with here to the actual back side, because the reason why this foam is here, as you can see, if you look at it right here, you see how this dips in right here? This is in, and this is sticking out a little bit further. The reason why it's like that is because there's a gap in this between this area here. So we'll put regular foam here and we'll put thicker foam here. That way it'll marriage up really nice with that. See, so that's that height there. And we'll go ahead and make them out a 1/2 inch too. That way it'll move it out into the panel a little bit more, because this speaker actually is about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit more, plus the tweeter. And then with this and that, it'll put it about where it needs to be. All right, I'm gonna go cut this off and router out 2 more of these so we can get these into the car. Alright, so we went ahead and planed down where the screws are going to go here on the top and also on the bottom. Now we're going to go ahead and get our hole for our 4-inch here in the middle. And for that, we'll use that 4x6 template. So we went ahead and screwed it on like we said. Let's go ahead and router this guy out. Alright, there we go. We have our speaker adapters. Now we can go ahead and get our 4-inch put in them. There we go, there's our 2 new speaker adapters. We're gonna go ahead and put some foam on the back. All right, so we have all the foam on both of the speakers on the front and on the back. We have our speaker wires that Alpine gives us. Now what we want to do is go ahead and grab the white wire here, and we're gonna add some 47 microfarad caps onto them so we can have a little bit extra protection than what the onboard crossover is gonna give us. And just wrap your wire on the cap and then go ahead and slide it down into place. All right, once you get it soldered on, go ahead and snip off these extra little legs. Now what I like to do at this point is go ahead and tape these up, and then I'm going to put some heat shrink over it just like Alpine did. There we go, our 4-inch / 4x6 mount are all set and ready to get into the car. All we have to do now is drill the holes for these to go into, put the rivets in, and we can get these plugged in and back in business. I'm gonna step over to the car right now. It's a really hard place to get to, so I'm gonna drill the holes first and get it all set, and then I'll bring you guys over and you can take a look at what we did. All right, let's take a look at this speaker here. Factory screw goes in there. We went ahead and drilled a rivet in here and screwed this in. As you can see, there's not a lot of room to work in here. This panel just covers it up like this. And this is as far as the seat comes forward, so you have to like lean in and drill. That's why it was just really hard to see. So one done there. Fernando's also got the amp mounted underneath the seat, and he's already ran the wires. So like he said, he made a bracket that followed the seat rail. He screwed that back in, and now the amplifier is mounted up underneath there. All the wires are going through the factory hole over here and run out to the front. So the amp is secure and all set. Fuse holder is mounted up and out of the way, attached to the side of the truck there. And of course, the wire is zip tied along with the factory wiring harness. and into the firewall. We put some strip caulk on the hole so we get no water into the car. So now that this is done, Fernando's gonna move to the back of the car and start working installing the handle cam. One thing that we, like you always go through all your products and look at everything first. And in this case, like we said, we're gonna use the LCGM. Now it's a smart harness, but it's the dullest smart harness they make, meaning it doesn't have anything other than the wrap and accessory power. So things like parking lights or dash illumination, the orange white wire, or reverse trigger, the purple white wire, they aren't on this. To get that, you'd have to go all the way up to the RP5, which is going to give you Bose integration, OnStar integration, steering wheel integration, and clearly this car has none of that. So it's like this huge gap between the two. So what we're going to do is, while he's in the back running the camera wire, we're also going to go ahead and tap the illumination, which is going to be the parking lights, and the reverse, so we can get him back there. Now, if you want to get him in the car, the BCM, body control module, is where you'd find the reverse wire. It's up mounted on the firewall. And then for the parking lights, it's telling you have to go out to the power distribution center underneath the hood, or of course go to any light. So we're already back there. Just makes sense. Just get it back there. We're already at. We'll solder into it. That way we don't have to go searching through the car and do all that nonsense. So that's where Fernando's at. So while he's in the back working on the camera, I'm of course going to get started on the radio. And since he's back there and not in the cab, I'm gonna start removing the brackets so we have the hole in the dash we need for our radio.
All right, so the first thing we want to do is we're going to take this top out. For that, we're going to use the T15. All right, so now this handle only has two 10 millimeters. And that's it. So basically this is like two hooks. You push it and comes like this. Also, you have to remove these bars. That's for the locks. So let's go to the bench and swap the lock.
We're gonna go ahead and do a handle cam. This guy right here. Now it's pretty cool looking. I mean, it did definitely do a thorough job on it. This is where the factory lock would go right here. Everything comes all bundled up in loom, which is nice. The camera's down here. This is the little cam that we do in a lot of vehicles. They just repurpose it for multiple vehicle applications. And of course, it's nice that it retains that lock, because some of these don't, and this one does. To swap the lock, all we have to do is reach down in here, pull this clip out. You gotta spread it open like a vise. Pull it straight out. And then just push it in. Just like that. Make sure that the clips are over the top of it so that it doesn't fall out. You can push it from here to make sure it's in nice and secure. That's it. That's all you have to do. Here you go, sir. Now naturally we don't want to lose this clip, so we'll go ahead and put it back on. We'll put the old handle back in the bag that this came with, and then we will put it back in the box. So if he ever decides, well, it's right here. He can put it back.
Okay, so before we start running the wire, we're gonna make sure if it is locked and unlocked properly. And it's not.
Locked. Okay. Yeah, because this moves regardless. So see, look how far it moves.
That's fine. But I was like, closing it and opening it,
right,
locked by itself.
Well, no, I locked it when I had to pull the lock out. When I had to get this out, I had to move it like that.
No, but it opens. Open once, twice, and then when I like, boom.
Yeah, it's fine. For a second chance.
Alright. Okay, so works good. Now we're gonna run a wire with a connection where we can get to. Can you put it in reverse?
Yeah. Wait. Lights are on.
Lights are on, hang on. Turn it off. Okay. Now the reverse. Okay. Take it out. Okay.
So Fernando's finishing up the handle cam. As you can see, that looks really nice up in the car. Blends in really well. When you're up here at normal height, you can barely even tell there's a camera there. Since this is black, it's just easier to use a silver Sharpie. I mean, it's the same thing every time. Cut it in 2 pieces. So what I like to do is come in here and cut it, the top piece out and the bottom piece out separately. That way it's just easier to get the whole thing out. Otherwise, kind of cumbersome. But all right, let's get this thing out. Alright, so when you get these all cleared out, what you want to do is go ahead and pull the wire. The wires are coming out the front here because they all plugged in here. You want to go ahead and pull them around the back so that they'll tuck in. You want to make sure you get all them out of the way. And then anything that isn't being used, you have plenty of room to tuck over to the left and right side. Now Fernando's already brought our wires up into the dash, so we're okay there. Now all we need to do is go ahead and get our harness ready to go in, get our dash kit built. So let's do that. Let's take a look at all the parts that we have for the radio. The antenna adapters, a BA-A22. Now antenna adapters are kind of like a pain in the butt because they're small. They often get left on the workbench. So to turn over a new leaf, when I unbag one, I'm trying to just go ahead and plug it in the car. So I'll be right back. Now obviously if they're gonna get wired up because they have some form of amplified antenna turn on, that's a totally different story because those get wired into the harnesses. But these standalone ones, it's like, I always leave them on the bench. So trying to improve the way we do. The dash kit is going to be the BKGMK 325BM. All it needs is a W, right? So inside the bag is another bag, and inside that bag is the kit. Now comparing the two, this one is a slight different color than this one, but it's not bad. Let's go ahead and get the air conditioning controls out of here. To do that, there's just a bunch of little tabs along the side that you just pry apart, and then this slides right out. Now since we're done with this now, we can go ahead and put this back in the bag so that it won't get all scratched up. And also put it into the other bag. And then we can also put the radio itself in the same bag. So now we have everything that we took out of the car in this bag here. As far as this piece here goes, we're just gonna go ahead and remove this, because this is if you're gonna do a single DIN, which we're definitely not doing. Go ahead and snap in our AC controls. Ooh, Ziploc. That doesn't, okay. Out of the bag of parts, we're gonna need the trim bezel for here, the bag of screws, but we're not gonna need these. These are for the single DIN. Go ahead and remove these little things that are sticking off of it. And also these pieces here. Now keep these, you're gonna need those, because they're gonna go on here. This is there again for a single DIN application. And of course the bag of screws. Now on the bag of screws, there are 2 clips in the bag. And those just go right here. And right here, that's it. Now you want to go ahead and snap this into place. This is directional, so it just doesn't go in like both ways. There is a top and a bottom. There's writing on the top so that you can tell which is which. These guys here are going to snap into the sides, and then this will snap into the holes, just like that. And that's essentially building this kit. Now you gotta do is slide the radio in, screw it together. Now in the bag, there are 2 different size screws. There's a short and a long. The longs are for the tops where we just snap those pieces. Now if the screw holes don't line up, don't be afraid to cut these to make them line up. Don't force the issue, because when you force the issue, that's what makes the radio go crooked. All right, as always, check your lines, make sure it's straight. Set it to the side, because this guy's done. Now one of the features that this harness does have, which is unique, is that it does have the auxiliary bypass, meaning that center console armrest, it does have an aux that's on its own. It's not part of the actual hub. They do pin it for that, so that's kind of nice. You will be able to retain the aux in the center console if you use it for whatever reason. All right, we got all the tape off the harness like we often do. Now what we want to do is go ahead and take a look at the instructions and see what kind of output this accessory wire has. All right, cool. So this accessory actually has a 10 amp output. That means there's some form of onboard relay on this, which means we'll be able to power up a backup camera, just one camera though, with this radio, no problem. Now because we ran speed wire up into the dash, what we're going to go ahead and do is add in a remote turn on into this bundle, and we'll loop it through to our radio. Now on this harness there is a blue-white, which would normally be a amplifier turn on or a powered antenna turn on. In this car it doesn't have that. The easiest way to check is of course to take your harness over to your car, plug it in, see if there's anything on the other side. If there isn't anything on the other side, you don't have to leave it in there. We're just going to go ahead and remove it. Now those are nice to save those pins, because you always see us repinning things. Anytime you can save a pin for something, you never know, you might need it for something in this later. Throw it in a box, save it. The car side of the harness is all taped up, and what we got left over here is the wiring that's going to go into our Pioneer harness. What we're going to need though is an accessory and ground for backup camera. We're also going to need the purple and the orange that are going to be coming from the back to attach the reverse and illumination. So we're going to cut some extra wire and do a little bit of soldering. Now the accessory wire is shorter than we need it, so first thing we want to do is go ahead and get that to the right length. And while we're doing that, we'll also go ahead and solder in our power lead for the backup camera. Next, we'll go ahead and add in our ground. Alright, so we're all set and done. We have our Pioneer plug all in and all set. We capped off all the wires we aren't going to be using. This is going to attach to our speed wire. So here is the pigtail for the camera. We have accessory and ground. We have our orange illumination, and we have our purple reverse trigger. So this is all set. We can go ahead and get this into the car. We still have to do the USB. The plan we came up for the USB is we're going to use the USB DMA1, which is the little pack audio 12-inch flush mount USB. We're going to mount it right below where the factory cigarette lighter is. Be a nice short run into the dash. We'll also use our Pioneer USB extension. It's a really high quality USB, by the way. I mean, these are nice. So if you ever get an opportunity to keep one of these, keep it. Now this is the pocket that's located below the air conditioning controls. It sits in the dash. You put your stuff here. Here's your power port right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to put our USB right here. There's nothing behind this, it's all open, so it's like the perfect place to do that and retain the power port. Obviously, if you didn't need this anymore, you can pull this out and put it right there, but there's no reason to lose it because there is plenty of room to put it in there. Now, what I didn't mention is how this actually comes out. So there's 3 T15 Torx. One is located here behind this door, it's right here. And then there's 2 here on the bottom. So when this sits in the car like this, you drop this down, hit that, and then with a right angle you can get to these 2, and then this obviously more metal clips holding it in. This thing is good to go. Now what we want to do is go ahead and connect our Pioneer USB to it, because obviously this isn't going to reach. So it's going to clip on like that. We're going to put heat shrink over this too, because we don't want this to come apart. It's heat shrink so you'll be able to cut it if you ever need to take it off. And then we're going to go ahead and add some flexible tubing on here also for the portion that runs through the dash. So we won't have to worry about this wire getting caught on anything. And that's it. Now we can go take this into the car, run it up behind the radio. Now one of the last pieces of the puzzle to go into this are the door speakers. For some reason we've just kept those until the very last thing. So we still have the 2 8-inch to put in the doors, we haven't forgot about them. They're just the last thing to go in. Obviously the radio will be the very last, but everything is in there now. The USB was the last thing to get connected. Let's get these doors off, take a look at putting in the cool Alpine 8-inch. The 8-inch, you get a bag of screws, and you also get some weather stripping foam for the speaker. Now if we open up our instruction manual, first thing they have you doing is removing the door panel, which we'll do in a second, but there's instructions here if you need to know, and it involves the first 3 pages are all about putting the speakers in. Now we also have the 2 crossovers here and here that they show you zip tying into the bracket. And we have the last 2 factory speaker adapter plugs that are going to go along with these. So they show you both passenger and driver door removal and the instructions. Let's get into the car and actually get it done. Now the first thing we want to do is go ahead and pop out the cover here that's covering the handle switch, and we'll take out the 7mm behind that. Now he has manual crank windows, and for those there's usually a C-clip, or oh Jesus clip is what they like to call it, mounted behind it. There is a tool that's specifically designed to get those out. I've never really liked those. I always use just a pick tool, usually a 90. This is it here. Now these love to fly, so be real careful taking these out. There's 2 more 7s here in the handle, 2 more 7s on the bottom. Now no GM would be complete without having some metal clips in it, and all across the top of the door panel here is where the metal clips are. 1 7mm holds the door speaker on, and of course there's foam on it. Now if you've ever wondered why your GM sounds like total crap, this would be why. It's a 6x9, or it could be, but they just put a crappy little 6.5 in it. There you go. That's it. That's all you get. Now as far as the door handle, as far as getting this off, this is your thumb right here. You just push on this, it lifts up this hook right here, and this will come right off, and then you just pull the ball out. Now we're going to go ahead and put some foam on this so it fits nice and tight. We'll foam the front as well. instructions, what they want you to do is actually zip tie the crossover into the panel here. That would be why they gave you those zip ties. So it's going to sit down here in the bottom. This will plug into the woofer. That sounds good. Then we have these that are supposed to attach to this. Now obviously we don't need almost 2 feet of wire here. So just like the mid bass, we'll go ahead and cut these up and solder them together. Now, you want to tape this up immediately. That's the thought. Don't. Go ahead and set this aside. Let this heat shrink cool off until it's, you know, nice and cool. It gets harder once it cools. You don't want to tape it up while it's hot and run the risk of, while it's soft, pinching the 2 wires together and possibly shorting it out. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and take one of these over, along with 4 of the screws that they give you and 1 of the woofers. I'm gonna wait to zip tie until I actually get it in the door and figure out where it's got to go. Adding the foam to the back makes it a super tight fit. Factory harness has this clip here, which is designed to clip up here back into the top one. Plug in our speaker. Now I just want to test fit it. Fits good. All right, so let's take a look at how this thing turned out. Looks nice in the door panel there. So you can see it just kind of, you know, it's flat on this side here so that it'll clear the door panel, and then they've adjusted it over that it tapers back in. Looks nice, went in really tight. So we're just gonna get the door panel back on, get that other side, and then I'll meet you guys in the inside. We're gonna put the radio in. Now I actually gotta hear these. That's the best part. At the end of the day, that's the best part. Now the radio dimmed when we first turned it on because the headlights are on, like right now. So we know that our illumination is good. What's the weather like today? Okay, that's fine. First, a couple things. This is what we found out about these GM trucks. They switch the polarity for the wires in the dash to the doors. So if you're doing one of these, positive, negative are backwards at the dash. All the other speakers pop red, those will pop green, which sucks. So we just pulled it apart, repinned them so that they were good to go. The other thing we found out is about the T-Series punched little cool amplifier that we used in this. Remember how we put a capacitor on the rear speakers as a bass blocker? Bad idea, as it turns out. Apparently those amplifiers don't like that. And what happens is you get this tremendous turn-on pop. Basically it's the capacitor charging or discharging. So it goes pop. And you're like, what the? Because we've never had one of these pop, but then again, we've never actually just put a bass blocker on it like that. Learned a valuable lesson there. We had to pull them back out, take them out. It's okay, the amplifier goes up to 220, plus the radio goes up to 220 at 24 dB. They're not getting a ton of volume anyways. I'm not real worried about them. They're okay. Other than that, holy crap. What do you think, Fernando?
I like the mid bass on the doors.
Yes, these things are awesome. We have these crossed over at 50 Hertz at the amplifier, which is 12 dB, which is fine because eventually he's going to add a subwoofer and I don't really want him to blow them, but they are just hammering for sure. I mean, totally hammering. Would this benefit from some roadkill? Of course it would benefit from some roadkill, but hey, you know, there again, we said it, budget, budget, budget. That's not to say he's not going to come back later and do it. This is one of the nice things about roadkill, is you can do it at another time. Granted, yeah, you got to pull the door panels back off again, but it's not the end of the world. Everyone take a chill. It's all good. These are very impressive. If you're thinking about doing them, you're on the fence, dude, if you want mid-bass in your car, these things have mid-bass. Mid-bass for days.
Yes.
Well, we're done with this one.
On to the next one.
What he said.